Emotional Manipulator. Written by Fiona McCall. Emotional manipulators get extra marks for subtlety. A patronizing mindfucker can bend and twist and warp, but somehow after a period of time they set off the old bullshit meter. An emotional manipulator is smoother. You'll have to adjust the sensitivity of your bullshit meter to escape unscathed. What is emotional manipulation? Well, emotional manipulation is a method of using words, body language and behavior for the purposes of provoking a particular reaction, getting a desired response, or to just plain old screw you over. If the emotional blackmailer is any good, he'll having you offering to bend over and be fucked one more time, anything you want dare. Let's talk about how an emotional manipulator works and how to recognize the game, because it very much is a game, so you can reset that bullshit meter and safeguard against possible attack. There is no use in trying to be honest with an emotional manipulator. You make a statement and it will be turned around. Example: I am really angry that you forgot my birthday. Response: it makes me feel sad that you would think I would forget your birthday. I should have told you of the great personal stress I am facing at the moment, but you see, I didn't want to trouble you. You are right, I should have put all this pain, don't be surprised to see real tears at this point, aside and focused on your birthday. Sorry. Even as you are hearing the words, you get the creeped out sensation that they really do not mean they are sorry at all, but since they've said the words, you're pretty much left with nothing more to say. Either that or you suddenly find yourself babysitting their angst. Under all circumstances, if you feel this angle is being played, don't capitulate. Do not caretake, do not accept an apology that feels like bullshit. If it feels like bullshit, it probably is. Rule number 1, if dealing with an emotional blackmailer, trust your gut. Trust your senses. Once an emotional manipulator finds a successful maneuver, it's added to their hit list and you'll be fed a steady diet of this shit. An emotional manipulator is the picture of a willing helper. If you ask them to do something, they will almost always agree, that is if they didn't volunteer to do it first. Then when you say, okay thanks, they make a bunch of heavy sighs, or other nonverbal signs that let you know they don't really want to do whatever said thing happens to be. When you tell them it doesn't seem like they want to do whatever, they will turn it around and try to make it seem like of course they wanted to and how unreasonable you are. This is a form of crazy making, which is something emotional manipulators are very good at. Rule number 2, if an emotional manipulator said yes, make them accountable for it. Do not buy into the sighs and subtleties. If they don't want to do it, make them tell you it up front, or just put on the Walkman headphones and run a bath and leave them to their theater. Crazy making, saying one thing and later assuring you they did not say it. If you find yourself in a relationship where you figure you should start keeping a log of what's been said because you are beginning to question your own sanity, you are experiencing emotional manipulation. An emotional manipulator is an expert in turning things around, rationalizing, justifying and explaining things away. They can lie so smoothly that you can sit looking at black and they'll call it white, and argue so persuasively that you begin to doubt your very senses. Over a period of time, this is so insidious and eroding it can literally alter your sense of reality. Warning: emotional manipulation is very dangerous. It is very disconcerting for an emotional manipulator if you begin carrying a pad of paper and a pen and making notations during conversations. Feel free to let them know you just are feeling so forgetful these days that you want to record their words for posterity's sake. The damnedest thing about this is that having to do such a thing is a clear example for why you should be seriously thinking about removing yourself from range in the first place. If you're toting a notebook to safeguard yourself, that whole bullshit meter should be flashing steady by now. Guilt. Emotional manipulators are excellent guilt mongers. They can make you feel guilty for speaking up or not speaking up, for being emotional or not being emotional enough, for giving and caring, or for not giving and caring enough. Anything is fair game and open to guilt with an emotional manipulator. Emotional manipulators seldom express their needs or desires openly, they get what they want through emotional manipulation. Guilt is not the only form of this, but it is a potent one. Most of us are pretty conditioned to do whatever is necessary to reduce our feelings of guilt. Another powerful emotion that is used is sympathy. An emotional manipulator is a great victim. They inspire a profound sense of needing to support, care for and nurture. Emotional manipulators seldom fight their own fights or do their own dirty work. The crazy thing is that when you do it for them, which they will never ask directly for, they may just turn around and say they certainly didn't want or expect you to do anything. Try to make a point of not fighting other people's battles, or doing their dirty work for them. A great line is, "I have every confidence in your ability to work this out on your own." Check out the response and note the bullshit meter once again. Emotional manipulators fight dirty. They don't deal with things directly. They will talk around behind your back and eventually put others in the position of telling you what they would not say themselves. They are passive-aggressive, meaning they find subtle ways of letting you know they are not happy little campers. They'll tell you what they think you want to hear and then do a bunch of jerk-off shit to undermine it. Example: "Of course I want you to go back to school, honey, and you know I'll support you." Then exam night, you are sitting at the table and poker buddies show up, the kids are crying, the TV blasting, and the dog needs walking, all the while sweetie is sitting on their ass looking at you blankly. Dare you call them on such behavior? You are likely to hear, "Well, you can't expect life to just stop because you have an exam, can you, honey?" Cry, scream, or choke 'em. Only the last will have any long-term benefits, and it'll probably wind your butt in jail. If you have a headache, an emotional manipulator will have a brain tumor. No matter what your situation is, the emotional manipulator has probably been there or is there now, but only 10 times worse. It's hard after a period of time to feel emotionally connected to an emotional manipulator because they have a way of derailing conversations and putting the spotlight back on themselves. If you call them on this behavior, they will likely become deeply wounded or very petulant and call you selfish, or claim that it is you who are always in the spotlight. The thing is that even though you know this is not the case, you are left with the impossible task of proving it. Don't bother, trust your gut and walk away. Emotional manipulators somehow have the ability to impact the emotional climate of those around them. When an emotional manipulator is sad or angry, the very room thrums with it. It brings a deep instinctual response to find some way to equalize the emotional climate, and the quickest route is by making the emotional manipulator feel better, fixing whatever is broken for them. Stick with this type of loser for too long and you will be so enmeshed and codependent you will forget you even have needs, let alone that you have just as much right to have your needs met. Emotional manipulators have no sense of accountability. They take no responsibility for themselves or their behavior. It is always about what everyone else has done to them. One of the easiest ways to spot an emotional manipulator is that they often attempt to establish intimacy through the early sharing of deeply personal information that is generally of the hook you in and make you sorry for me variety. Initially, you may perceive this type of person as very sensitive, emotionally open, and maybe a little vulnerable. Believe me when I say that an emotional manipulator is about as vulnerable as a rabid pit bull, and there will always be a problem or a crisis to overcome. Some would say it is possible with time, a great deal of honesty and communication to work through emotional manipulation. Personally, I think life is short and precious. The only worthwhile thing to do when confronted with an emotionally manipulative person is to broom their ass to the curb. A relationship with an emotionally manipulative person is similar to re-exposing yourself over and over and over to a highly toxic and potentially fatal virus. Each brush with it reduces your immunity and weakens your defenses. It can take more time for someone that has been in an emotionally manipulative relationship, read, abuse, to recover than it does for someone that leaves a physically abusive one. At least you can name that punch that hit you. Emotional abuse is subtle. It is insidious. It is dangerous. If you are in it, walk away and never look back. Make it a rule,